A reading from 1 Kings in the 19th chapter. Then Elijah was afraid. He got up and fled for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him, and said, "Get up and eat. Otherwise the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. And then he went in the strength of that food for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. At that place he came to the cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant and thrown down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks into pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire was the sound of sheer silence. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. A friend of mine posted a tweet on Facebook a few weeks before Lent that said the following: "The American addiction to work shows up in the church when Christians need to constantly figure out where God is at work. What if sometimes God is at rest and we miss God because God is there waiting for us to come and learn what life without an addiction to work even looks like?" That quote struck me and stuck with me for several days as I prepared to begin the Lenten season. Our church, All Saints, and many others have been doing the work of figuring out where God is at work, and where God is calling us to join in that work. And that's important that we do that work as the church. But it's also important that we are a church that is focused on rest. We cannot be ready to go out and do the work God is calling us to if we are so burned out and exhausted that we are unable to follow God's call. God does not demand just our going and going and going, but also our resting and our being present to God's presence in our midst. God rested after creating. Plants rest in the winter to prepare for the spring to come. We are not made as people to go and go and go. We are made to work and to rest. I really like this text from Elijah because it reminds me of two things about who God is and who we are. And that is that God knows our need for rest. God knows that when we are exhausted and hungry and thirsty, we are not our best selves. God sees that need and meets that need for us. It also reminds us that God does not show up in where the world says God will be. I appreciate the repetition of this Elijah text that says all of the places where God wasn't. Not in the powerful, the earthquakes and the rushing winds and the fires, not in the places that the world says, the powerful and the loud and the mighty. God shows up in the silence and the stillness that follows. Because God shows up when the world is at rest too. I think the reason that quote struck me for the Lenten season is that I think that's what the hope of Lent really is. It's more than just almsgiving and penance and giving up and serving and taking on. It's about preparing. It's about the rest that prepares us for the season ahead. And so Lent has to become a kind of season for renewal, for Sabbath, for preparing, not just doing more and more. It's not just about how much work can we fit into the season. It's about how can we prepare for the journey that is to come. That is really the story of that Elijah text. What is it that we need to prepare for the journey to be God's people, to go and meet God among the people and to share God's word? It isn't just more work. Sometimes it's that we need to eat and drink and be filled, to be rested, so that we might be able to join in that work to come. May this Lenten season also be a season of rest that is honoring of God's rest and preparing to be the people that follow where God is calling us. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.